Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Coffee, Cocktails, and Capitalism. I'm Morgan Reynolds with Beyond the Trend. Today, I am here with a good friend that I met through Main Street, Vero Beach, but he's got his hands in a lot of other things happening here locally, and then also they do some national business as well. So Jake McCrae, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. We've been talking about this now for, 4 or 5 months now? And we're making it happen.
You're a busy man.
You're a busy gal.
Don't put this on me. It's probably both true.
Yeah.
And Jake was also actually kind enough to introduce me to Dana, who was our wine enthusiast of the day. She owns a shop right here on Oceanside in Vero. If you missed that video, go back and watch it. But Jake, explain to the people this delicious thing that we're drinking right now, courtesy of Dana.
So this is probably the hardest wine to explain.
We picked a tough one.
We did. So if you've ever had orange wine, which I know that sounds kind of like counterintuitive to what wine is, but this is orange wine. It's from Chile. And this in our glass is Sauvignon Blanc. And basically what they've done is they've taken Sauvignon Blanc, a white grape, and made it like a red grape. So they're going to let it sit on the skins for 60 days and then basically put it in the barrel, whereas typical Sauvignon Blanc or any type of white wine is direct pressed when it comes in. I think it goes straight into the fermentation tank. So you get a little of that skin contact. That's why it's got that orangish hue.
Right.
If you've ever seen white grape varietals, they have kind of like this reddish orangish hue typically on the top of them, not like your,
They're not like the green white grapes.
Not the stuff you see in the ones you see in the grocery store. But if you ever go to the vineyard and you go and pick a white grape, no matter what it is, it typically has a little bit more of a color to it, specifically on the top of it. Like Pinot Grigio grapes or Pinot Gris are pink.
I never would have guessed that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Fun fact.
Fun fact. All right, so no oranges were harmed in the making of this wine, but it is delicious. So go back and watch that video and learn more about what we sampled with Dana and where you can go visit her and get some great wine. Jake is a local lender, commercial, residential. He also has some regional management responsibilities, right? So we're going to kind of get into all of that. But before all that, you were a wine representative?
In a nutshell, yes.
Okay. So he helped sell wine here in Vero Beach. So.
And liquor.
And liquor. All right. So all the good things. So we had to have him on the podcast. So, all right. We could start with any of these things, but let's just go back to the beginning. We'd like to kind of hear how people got to where they are. So where were you born and raised, Jake?
So I was born in a small town of less than 5,000 people called Napoleon, Ohio.
Wow.
Which, if anybody knows where Bowling Green is, it's about a half an hour south of Bowling Green. So if you ever heard of BGSU, just south of there.
Okay.
But I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, where the Ohio State University is. I had to throw that out there.
Okay. Don't come for us in the comments, guys.
But yeah, I grew up in a town in a western suburb of Columbus called Hilliard, Ohio.
Okay. And what was that kind of like? Was it pretty chill? Did you play sports? Did you have siblings? What was childhood?
So childhood was quintessential Midwest. I had a really great family upbringing. We were very lucky in that sense. Was very into sports. Was very much, the jock. And I think probably most people would meet me now and be like, really, that was you? Yeah, I was big into basketball. Played travel basketball pretty much from third grade all the way to high school. And then when I got into high school, I was really big into boys volleyball. That was my thing. Ended up winning state awards and a couple other things through that, and then went to go on and actually play in college.
Oh, wow. And where did you go?
So I went to a small school called Lindenwood, which is in St. Louis, Missouri, and that's indirectly how I met my wife.
Oh, nice.
But I was very much the guy that's like, I love Ohio, very proud to be from there, but it's time to, get out and try new things. And my uncle lived in St. Louis. It's like, hey, this is something you should check out. Really great space, very similar to Columbus, Ohio. It literally has the same interstate system. Like in Columbus, we have this outer belt called 270. St. Louis has the same 270 that goes around it, and then 70 cuts right through it, just like it does in Columbus. So it's almost like a identical replica of Columbus, which St. Louis, I think, is an older town than what Columbus is. Definitely a lot of old money and old buildings when you go into downtown St. Louis compared to...
Yeah, because it's right on the Mississippi, right?
Yep.
So it was
yeah,
kind of
big
part of
trade
that
town.
whole commercial thoroughfare, right, on the river and everything like that. So.
Yeah, a lot of those buildings, you go talk about like Budweiser and stuff like that really built that city. I mean, they go back to like the 1850s.
Oh, that's crazy.
But it's a really nice lake. Have you ever heard of, being, so hot it feels like a brick oven? That's St. Louis in the summertime.
Oh my goodness. Well, lots of places in kind of the central Midwest. Yeah. Yeah. My mom's family is actually from Missouri, and I went to school in Lexington, so I'm kind of familiar with that.
You got like the trifecta between Chicago, Lexington, and what part of Missouri?
I could not tell you. It was like a farm.
Most of the state is farm.
It was on the west side, so like closer to the river than not.
I'm trying to think of is there Humboldt up there or something like that? I know when you get farther north going towards the Iowa border, there's
I feel like
a
they've
bunch
told
of
me,
small
and
farm towns up
I
there.
can't remember. My mom will kill me when she watches this for not remembering.
And I'm sure she's proud to be from there.
She is. No, they go back for family reunions actually pretty frequently. So, yeah. But anyway, so you made your way over there, and when you were growing up, were your parents kind of, you better get yourself a paper route or, lemonade stand or allowance, or, were you kind of more focused on sports? How did that go?
I indirectly had to start working when I was 16 years old. And it was by my own doing.
Okay, what did you do?
So as soon as I got my driver's license, my dad had a Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited, which was like the V8 model. It was like the cool thing back in the day. This was like in the early 2000s. And of course, as a young kid, let's take this thing out the highway and see how fast it can go.
Of course, it's
So
only natural.
I ended up getting 2 speeding tickets in, I think it was in a course of like 3 or 4 months. So at that point, my license was suspended.
Yeah.
And my mom and dad were like, once your license becomes unsuspended, it's time for you to go to work and kind of learn how to be like a civilized human being. So,
we need you to be able to enter society.
Yeah, and they're like, we're not paying for your insurance anymore. We're not paying for your gas. Like, you need to go and handle that. And it was actually one of the best things that ever happened to me. And it kind of told me really how to, showed me how to have work ethic, I think, is the best thing. That's something I think I pride myself on now. My wife will tell you that because she's like, you work too much. It's been enough family time. You work too much.
Yeah.
But I started, my first job was at Tim Hortons.
Oh,
so
my goodness.
If you're from the north, you probably know the coffee shop Tim Hortons, which I still think has some of the best commercial donuts.
Those might be fighting words, but we won't digress. So, yes. Okay. So at Tim Hortons, so kind of like a fast food experience?
Yeah, I mean, very much kind of like a fast food. They have kind of drive-through setup. It's like a Dunkin'. It's like the Dunkin' of the Midwest, I think is really what you see. And the Dunkin' wasn't big in the Midwest at the time. I think it was still more of a Northeasterner, type thing. But, for some reason, we really wanted a Canadian company come out here and sell us coffee and donuts. And, they had lunch sandwiches and stuff like that. But it was great because it was a company where, if you did what you were told and, paid attention, they moved you up. I started out as the guy who put the donuts in the oven, and then I became the guy at the drive-through, and I can't even remember where I kind of ended at, but it was a really cool first job, and it's not something that like worked at a coffee shop and sold donuts, like that was cool to you, but it was a neat experience, and it was always right after school.
Yeah. Well, I think it's maybe a little similar to kind of Chick-fil-A, where if the company has a culture where they don't mind taking young people who have never had any experience and kind of training them along the way and making it a positive experience, that can make a really big difference over the long haul for somebody.
I would agree, and it also helped that like Chipotle, which was like brand new at the time, was right next door, so you're always going over to get Chipotle back when the burritos were like the big size.
It helped get you through.
It helped get me through. It's like, I can go to
donuts.
Chipotle. And Chipotle was like, I think $6 a burrito back then, so it was like, affordable still.
inflation.
Mhm.
So, well, so good for you. So your parents were like, get to work, and you did, and you had a good experience. And then you played sports in college in St. Louis.
Played sports in college, and really before then there was a job I had in between my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college that kind of put me on a trajectory of where I am now. Our next door neighbor owned a title company at the time, and that title company, I had no clue what title was. And he's like, hey, I need some help in our office space. Do you want like a data processing job? I was like, don't know what that is, but sure.
Sure.
He's like, I paid $10 an hour. Back then that was like, oh, you're making money. So I think at Tim Hortons, I think I made $6.25, maybe more, less than that.
I remember when minimum wage was like $5.50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did that for a summer, and it was really kind of an introduction into really how the real estate world kind of worked from a transaction standpoint. And what I would do is they had 3 or 4 guys that would do what are the title searches for the lenders. And the 4 transactions, they would give me those title reports or title searches, and I would compile them into a report. And when you think of transaction volume, being a mortgage lender here now, the type of volume they were doing was incredible. I think I was putting out 30 reports a day.
So that means they were trying to do 30 transactions a day? Like closings or? Not
necessarily closings. I mean, not every title report means a closing, but just the amount of volume, because this was 2006. So this was prior to the, right before the crash. So, the market was going nuts at that point in time. And pretty much all the title searches were coming from one lender, and it was a lender that, had gone out of business during the crash. If you've ever heard of Countrywide, that was a lender that I think pretty much 90% of the title searches were going
heard of
to.
Them, yeah.
But it was really an introduction into what that space looked like, which I didn't go directly into real estate at that point, but it was kind of a point where like, hey, I kind of see what this is like and what it could be down the road. And funny enough, when I left, a good friend that I played volleyball with went in and worked for him, and now that's what he does. He lives over in Tampa and runs a title company.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's kind of funny how the
it was a little formative for all of you.
Yeah.
So were you all using the internet for title searches back then? Realtors have told me stories of like books that they had to go through to check like home information and stuff like that.
This was still internet. Yeah, this was internet age. I know when you're looking for deeds sometimes, where a lot of the files we were doing, even though we lived in Columbus, a lot of the deals were getting done out of Cleveland, which is Cuyahoga County. And their website, which sometimes I had to go back, like they didn't put one of the docs in there, so I had to go look it up myself. And some of these deeds, you had to go back, I think we had to go back 3 different owners on a property if it went back that far. And some of the deeds would go back to 1920s, 1910s. Like sometimes like if a deed would show up in the system and it would say, it's this property deed, but it'd be a deed for a completely different address.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I think it's just, it was all scanned in docs. So, that was a time where they were still trying to scan in all these old docs and use this internet.
Get things digitized for the first
Correct,
time.
yeah. And there's a lot of error. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
But again, it was just a really neat kind of experience. And I didn't really think much of it at the time. I'm like, I'm making $10 an hour,
Right.
I worked with a guy who was going to Ohio State at the time that we kind of became friends. And most of the other guys were, had wives and kids, were in their 30s like we are now. But it was more of a building block for me than I think I ever knew it was at that time.
Yeah. I think for many people out there, they could say the same, that there was probably a lot of steps in the process that you never would have predicted actually were having a bigger impact than you could see at the time, type of thing in your career. So from there, what did you do?
So I went to St. Louis, went to go play volleyball, and at school, being a collegiate athlete, you kind of get into working out. And this was pre-CrossFit and all that type of stuff. And I was like, you know what? I really want to be a personal trainer. So in between my sophomore and, well, this was 2002, yeah, I guess the end of my freshman year. I went and got, when I came home from school, I went and got my personal training license through NASM. And that was like, the tip top. It was like going to the Harvard of,
of
personal training at the time. It was like so them or you went to ACE.
Okay.
And like that industry just was not what it is today. You built your own program. There was no AI, or you could say, hey, put a 50-year-old woman in here and create a workout plan for it type of thing. You had to basically use books and create workout plans and run boot camp classes at 5:00 in the morning and work there. And it was grueling. It was like my first introduction to true sales, even though you're still trying to provide a service as a personal trainer, but you had to sell people into.
You had to sell yourself and sell the packages and.
Yeah. And me, I've never been a big guy. I might be tall, but I've never been big. And usually in a gym, everybody wants to go with the big guy that has the muscles. And I was like, you know what, this probably just is not going to be a fit for me.
Long term, maybe. Yeah.
So I transitioned. I went on back into school and kind of was doing the business administration degree that I was doing, and I also took a job and really my first like restaurant gig at that point too. When I went back to school, I was working at Applebee's of all places. Back when Applebee's was the place to be.
Such the Midwest experience.
Oh yeah.
Yes. No. Fond memories of Applebee's, and then later its competitor, TGI Fridays.
Well, and TGI Fridays was really big back in that day when I was, that was the main competitor, and then Chili's was kind of like the new kid on the block. But I started working with a buddy of mine that I played volleyball with, that we both came from Columbus, and we went to school at Lindenwood, and then, started, as servers and eventually moved into bartenders at Applebee's. And that is actually how I met my wife.
Really?
And she will tell you, and she loves telling the story that...
Okay, tell us the story.
We hated each other.
No.
Absolutely hate each other.
Enemies to lovers? That's such a trope.
It is. And, it's funny, as my buddy that I was working with that kind of brought me to Applebee's, he was dating her best friend.
Okay.
And in a sense, it took months down the road, but we eventually, hung out enough to where like, you know what, you're actually an all right person. And she's like, I kind of like you. You're all right too.
I love that.
So that's kind of how we started dating. And we dated for three or so years before I moved to California. It's a funny story, I guess, if nothing else.
I love that though. You never know, right? You never know when your person is kind of going to come along.
Well, and what's more crazy about our story is when I moved to California after college, we separated. So we broke up, and she went on, lived her life, I lived my life, and we were basically apart for 10 years, and then we came back together and then got married.
That is crazy.
So that is like our unique story that we have. So we're the modern day Brady Bunch.
I love that. Okay, so we'll circle back to that. What took you to California?
So my biological father lives out there. He still lives out there to this day. And he's like, hey, there's a group that's opening up a restaurant. Because I was running more high-end restaurants in St. Louis right before I left.
Oh, okay.
In downtown. And
so wait a second, pause. How did you move from Applebee's to like fine dining?
So it came to a point where I'm like, I was starting to kind of get into wine at that point in time, or at least just higher end type service, I guess is what you would call it. And I was like, I need to make some more money. It always comes down to like, let's make a little bit more money.
Sure.
I'm getting older, I should be making more money. So
right, yeah.
I got a job in the downtown area of St. Louis, just a couple blocks from where the Cardinals play, right from Busch Stadium. And came in as a server, quickly moved up to a bartender, then moved into management at that point. I managed that restaurant, I think, for just under 2 years.
Okay. And how old were you about at that time?
I was 23. 23, I think, when I was managing that restaurant. I was 24 when I left. But I was the front of house manager, helped with kind of the wine list curation at that point. We had kind of a wine director, but he was kind of grooming me to be like, hey, if this is something you want to do, like, you need to start sitting in on these meetings and kind of figure out, how this all kind of works, how we price things, how we select. And, for this restaurant had a 5,000 bottle selection. It was massive.
That's crazy.
The restaurant itself was 26,000 square feet. It had a retractable roof in the downtown area. It was a really cool place for its time. Now,
nice.
I don't know what it is now, and downtown St. Louis is not the greatest place you want to be right now, but it was a really cool spot back in the day. And that was 2011, I think, is right when I was spending most of my time there, right before I left. Because I left there in 2012, August 2012, moved out to California.
Okay. And in California, you had a job out there already?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
So my dad introduced me to a guy that he had bought a bar out there, and then he bought this old 1920s. It had been a lot of things, but it's kind of like what our theater in Vero is. That was their kind of theater out there, except for I think originally it was a garage, then became like a historical landmark of some sort, and then became a restaurant scene. They had a couple of restaurants kind of come and go. It's like one of those places where you can't change a whole lot. Like they had the Spanish tile floors in there that couldn't be changed.
Right. Some
ceiling
historical things,
Yep.
and it was regulated. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was right on PCH. So if anybody knows anything about California, this was in Dana Point. So just
the Pacific Coast Highway, right?
Pacific Coast Highway. It's like the mecca of where you want to be in California. And so Dana Point is about 10 minutes south of Laguna Beach. So you had a lot of that crowd that would come down there. Like we'd have Dennis Rodman come in, and
that's kind of
Charlie
fun.
Sheen would come in there every now and again. But a lot of just, people you wouldn't think would be down in that area that would be hanging out. But it was
peak millennial celebrity culture.
Right, exactly, yeah.
I love that. Cool.
Yeah, we saw Dennis a lot. He was down there a lot because he lived in Newport, and you would never understand how large of a man he is. You'd shake his hand, and his hands are twice as big as mine. That's how big his hands are.
I believe that, though, because those guys were all on the Bulls when I was growing up in Chicago. So him and Jordan and Pippen were like the trifecta. Yeah, that's crazy. So anyways, we won't wax poetic about the Chicago Bulls. But
Chicago.
You're in California. You're working at this restaurant. You're getting kind of more into the wine scene, maybe the high end like spirits and cocktails and stuff like that scene.
And they brought me out there to really be like their assistant general / wine director. And they were, I don't want to say they were like a Class A fine dining. They were kind of like a Class B or a Class C, where they're somewhat casual, but that was kind of where a lot of the guys that did a lot of deal making, let's put it that way. So you had a really cool outside bar that sat right on PCH. And then you had not like a great like food scene there. Like it wasn't like this top tier Michelin star restaurant or something like that, but they kind of allowed me to bring in kind of my first wine menu, and that was like I thought was the coolest thing at the time. Like, hey, I'm finally making it. I'm out of just serving food and running restaurants, and now I'm actually curating a wine menu. I thought it was like I'm making it. I'm getting there.
That is a big deal. Yeah, good for you.
But yeah, so I worked for them for I want to say like a year and a half, 2 years, and then worked for another competitor right across the street, kind of doing the same thing. And I got to a point where I was like, I'm tired of being in the restaurants. I'm tired of the hours. So I moved to the Central Coast, moved up to San Luis Obispo. So if you've ever heard of Cal Poly, that's where Cal Poly is. And I went and actually opened up my own wine brokerage company and worked for a couple wineries up in Paso Robles.
Oh, nice. Good for you.
So if you've ever heard of Wild Horse Winery, which they're not so much around. They used to be bigger here about 10, 15 years ago. And then the other winery I worked for was, trying to remember what the actual name of it is now. They used to make biker and anarchy, and they're kind of like the hipster trend wine back in like the mid 20-teens.
Yeah.
And they made phenomenal wine. I mean, phenomenal. I mean, every bottle was, $40-$50, but it was that place that was just like kind of the cool place to go. They had the Perrones there. If you don't know what a Perrone is, it's like a I'm gonna probably say this incorrectly, but it's a Spanish wine bong.
Okay.
So what they do is they fill up this decanter that has a spout on it, and then they'll literally have somebody like almost sit in a chair like this. They'll have somebody stand up top, and they're pouring wine almost like a beer bong, until you can stop.
That's hilarious.
And it was just a really unique place. Okay. And they were very eclectic, artistic. They had 5 Chihuly chandeliers in there that were probably worth more than all the wine combined that they sold.
That's insane.
I mean, just a really cool spot. And that's where I kind of cut my teeth on what quality wine really was. And spent about a year up there. My first daughter was born at that time, and was born in San Luis Obispo, and we moved back down to Orange County, California. I took a job as with Southern Wine and Spirits, which was, they still kind of are the mecca of the wine distribution world, and I think now they're called Southern Glaziers. But
not at all related to Southern Eagle that we have here, right?
No, Southern Eagle is the Bush family. They're the beer guys.
Got it. Okay.
Now, Southern Glaziers, their headquarters is actually down in Miramar in Miami.
Okay.
But they're the ones that kind of control the mainstream liquor and wine market here in the United States.
How did you get from California back to Florida? Or you had never been in Florida, right?
So my mom and dad have always had a house down here since the early 2000s.
Okay.
I think they bought in 2008. They bought literally right when the crash happened. And the whole reason why they came down here is they are huge. My mom's a huge Disney fanatic, and so is my sister.
Oh, that's funny.
So we would spend, I want to say in the late 90s, my parents became a member of the Vacation Club for Disney.
Okay.
And at that time, I'm like, okay, cool, we can go to the resorts at Disney, and you never knew about all these other resorts that they had, which obviously Vero, we have, one of the best, in my opinion, and the
Vero Resort
off of
A1A.
Yep.
Okay. If you don't know, Vero has a Disney resort.
They do, and the breakfast is phenomenal. If you want to take your kids to a character breakfast, phenomenal.
Yeah, I hear the food and hospitality there is great.
It is. They run that. It's a tip-top shop, and you would think that place gets remodeled a lot, but it looks very similar to what it was when we used to go back there in the late 90s and early 2000s. But it's just a really unique spot, and I think my parents are like, well, let's do something new. We go to Disney, and, we've all gone to the 4 parks, and let's go an hour and a half southeast and check out Vero. And my parents fell in love with Vero. They fell in love with the obviously the traffic that's non-existent for the most part here.
Yes. Very quiet.
Yeah. My mom had spent a lot of time down, I think, in the Fort Lauderdale area growing up. So being in Vero was kind of like not what she thought Florida was. And they really wanted to, instead of going to Disney all the time, dealing with the hustle and bustle, like, well, why don't we just get a house down here? So they bought a house down here, which they, funny enough, just sold here about 6 months ago. So they had it for just under 20 years.
Oh, wow. It's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, my parents are holders.
They committed. They committed.
But, they spent a lot of time down here. My mom was down here a lot during the summertime. And this was after I was out of high school. It was really my brother and sister that would come down here a lot. But, she had a pool, so, we always go over there, go hang out at the pool. Well, really.
The allure of Florida for people who grew up in the Midwest, if you didn't have that experience, you can't really understand.
It's true.
To this day, anytime I walk out the door and I look at the palm trees and I don't have to put a jacket on, I'm like, where am I? Where do we even live? It's such a treat.
The fact that it doesn't get below 60 unless you're in January is the thing that I think I take for granted the most. Which I enjoy those temperatures.
Oh, no, I don't need that.
Right.
I personally don't need anything below 70. If I have to put on long sleeves to take the dog out, I don't want it,
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's just me. So your parents found Vero, and then what made you decide that you wanted to maybe move here versus staying out on the West Coast?
So right before COVID, this was like 2018, 2019, I had another daughter. So I had my oldest Genevieve and my youngest Savannah at that time. And I was kind of getting to, I'm trying to think of how I describe this. We were getting to a point where like working as a sales rep, just the hours weren't working because it was a lot of wine dinners at night. It was a lot of because I worked in Hollywood and at that time as well as down south, so it was a lot of back and forth. So my hours would be, I'd leave the house at like 7 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't get home until like 8, 9 o'clock at night, and it just was not didn't work with a family time schedule.
Yeah,
it really
it's
did.
not conducive.
Yeah. And we weren't getting back east a whole lot. Like, we didn't really see my parents. I mean, there was I think a 2-year span where we didn't see my parents at all. And my mom was like, you know what? If you want me to see my granddaughters, you need to make a change. And this is also about the same time when California was just getting so overly expensive. The state income tax had risen, I think, like a percent or two. And I was like, well, it's kind of funny you say that, or, financially, I think it's a time to probably make a move anyway. She's like, well, we'll move back to Ohio. I was like, that's not really what I was thinking.
Of the two places you live, that's maybe not my favorite.
Right. Well, and like I'd lived in California so long, living by the coast had become, second nature to me at that point. I mean, I've spent more time on the coastline than I have living in Ohio at this point in my life.
Yeah.
So it's very much, I think when you get down to a place like this, you kind of take the beach for granted, but it's something that you always know is there. It's like you can always touch it, right?
Right, exactly.
So I was like, okay, well, we'll move down. We'll move down to Florida. Let me figure out how we do it.
Twist our arm. We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's not like they were down here all the time, but we knew we would see them in the summertime the whole time. So it would make it a little bit easier.
Access, for sure.
And the flights from Florida to Ohio were a lot better than flying from California to Ohio.
For sure, yeah.
So, I mean, it's like a 4.5 hour compared to a 2.5 hour. It made it easier to do that way. So we moved right before COVID. I've transferred with Southern, took a route out here, and it was very night and day of how they did things out there, how we do things here in Florida.
Was there a little bit of a learning curve?
A little bit of a learning curve.
Yeah.
The pay was dramatically different.
Yeah. Well, smaller population, right?
Smaller population. The sales, surprisingly, actually weren't that much different.
Okay.
It was just the way that things were structured a little bit differently, and the leadership out there was very, let's say, corporate, to where here was a little bit more, I guess you could call it middle management. You had a little bit more of a relationship with your boss compared to out there was, you're kind of a number.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
And did you like that? Was a positive change?
I did. I had to learn how to sell rum because California people don't drink rum.
Oh, well, I guess that's okay. I see that.
People like their voodoo buckets down here. If you don't know what a voodoo bucket is, go to, I'm trying to think of the place
Waldo's?
here. Waldo's,
Yes.
Waldo's and Captain Hiram's, those were like, one of the two biggest, places to sell those type of things. But it was a totally different sales perspective where tequila and wine, especially high-end wine, was very big out there. Here it was very much rum and vodka, and wine was not so much a thing when I first moved here.
That's interesting. East Coast versus West Coast drinking habits.
Yeah.
More different than you may think, I guess.
You would think. I mean, obviously you come on beachside here in Vero, and you definitely have your places like the Kimpton and Costa Este and Polo and stuff like that, where you have more of a collective, wine atmosphere compared to most restaurants out in California. Anything that's really on the coastline, you have a pretty manicured wine list.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's not like lower price points, but you're not drinking, CK Mondavi by the glass out there. You're drinking some, white labeled product that, is made for the on-premise or restaurant scene out there.
Well, California is such wine country.
That it is.
It's so saturated in the culture. We don't make a lot of wine in Florida, so. No,
they do make it in Orlando though.
Yeah.
Like real wine.
Well, it's creeping in,
It
we
is,
have a little winery over here, and there's kind of more, I think, mom and pop shops popping up and stuff. But,
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, you made your way back. You figured out the rum situation.
Figured out the rum situation.
And then at some point, you left the alcohol business and made kind of a big change.
I did. I came back to real estate in a sense of I knew I didn't want to be a real estate agent. I just didn't think I had really the personality for that. I mean, I feel like I'm charismatic. I don't think most people think I come off as a very charismatic guy, but
I think you're pretty easy to talk to,
but I've always been a numbers centric person. I think that's why I did so well in the wine business, where I can tell you what's in that wine, but I can also tell you how it's going to make you money. Mm-hmm. And that's when I decided to go get my NMLS license, which allows you to become a mortgage loan officer. And my biological father he came from kind of the same similar business, had done it for a really long time. He wasn't a loan officer, but he was a developer of mortgage loan software. And he had told me, decades ago, he's like, there's going to come a time where you're going to want to transition and come into this business. And COVID really happened, or really kind of prior to COVID, I was already kind of thinking this, because not that selling liquor and wine is bad. I mean, it's kind of always a party type of scenario, but you get to a point where you're like, am I really helping people? I'm selling poison in a sense, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it that way, yes.
And that's how I started to look at it. It's like, I don't want to be the guy that's trying to make you buy the extra case of wine just so that I hit a quota number this month. Now, did I want to keep doing the wine dinners and educating people and having people enjoy the time? Like, that's the best part of that business.
Yeah, right.
But what people don't see is the sales side, where it's very cutthroat and it's very,
there can be a lot of pressure.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why I moved from California out here, is because California had a very cutthroat side of that business, where here it wasn't as cutthroat per se. I didn't know that until I came here, but that's kind of where it came to be. But I really wanted to get into a sense of like, I want to help people get into homes. I really do, and still do. And I think a lot of people from the mortgage side of the business, it's better now than I think it was when I first came into the business, that you didn't have a whole lot of help or guidance in the process. It was submit your application, you're approved or you're not approved, and if you don't make it, hey, come back next year, type of thing.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of planning, there wasn't a lot of education, and there wasn't a lot of candor. I think is probably the best way to say it, because a lot of people now, I think the business has changed here since COVID on how people go and find a mortgage compared to what it was prior to COVID. I think there was a lot more interaction in an office setting, whereas now it's almost 99% of it is over the phone. And some clients I don't ever meet in person, especially if they're out of state. And that happens sparsely, but here in town I might not meet somebody until we're at the closing table. And like I don't like that part of the business. That's probably the part of the business that I least like, because I'm very much this, where we're interactive face to face, rather than you don't know me from Adam talking to me on the phone.
Right. Well, especially if you do kind of have a passion for kind of the education part of the process and helping people to really understand what it means to be getting a loan or a mortgage, and how they can get a better one, or improve their circumstances, kind of thing.
Well, and it's more than that too. I mean, it's easy to say, hey, let's structure it to where you can get the loan, but what does it look like after you get the loan? Like, what are your, we might get you to where you're financially structured to qualify, but hey, can you actually afford this thing after you get it? I talk to clients all the time about, like, you need to make sure, or we want to make sure, that you're not house poor.
Right.
Let's say, like, today you got a job and you're making, the amount of money to qualify and you're feeling stable, but let's say you lose your job here in 3 months, and, you didn't have 6 months reserves or 12 months reserves to hold off on them. That's a lot of things that people don't think about. And I think in this economy right now, that people lose jobs more frequently now than they ever have.
Yeah.
Especially in the town that we're in, because we just don't have a whole lot of industry. You don't have a whole lot of guys like the Pipers of the world that have a large workforce.
Right.
Most people here, most businesses are small. They're under 50 employees. I mean, they're really usually under like 15 employees.
Yeah.
And business could slow down. They're like, hey, Miss Receptionist, I just we don't have the volume to cover your cost anymore. I got to let you go. I think a lot of doctors' offices come into that problem where like we're just not seeing the amount of volume anymore, and we got to let you go.
Yeah. Well, in general, I think I heard Mark Cuban talk about this a couple of years ago, but the rate at which an industry changes now versus 50 years ago is completely insane. It used to be you didn't see a lot of shifts within an industry within a 5-year period, right? It would be like a decade before there was anything significant that would change your job or your career trajectory. And nowadays, 6 months in an industry due to the new technology or a change in the economy or what's happening globally, it can really be different. So yeah, I think figuring out how to kind of make your career last or to be more nimble is really important.
Well, and AI is a big factor of that. Not to go down a rabbit hole on that, which I can. I feel bad kind of for these kids that are coming out of college that would typically go into these entry-level positions that AI is kind of slowly kind of taking over now. Not all of them will go away, but if you were a data analyst to where you were building out spreadsheets and stuff like that, like those jobs don't exist. I tell Chad or Claude to make me a spreadsheet based on this information analysis that I give it. It creates a spreadsheet in 2 minutes, whereas it took that data analyst a week to make.
Yeah. Well, that is true. I mean, I see a lot the other side of it because my husband and I hire a lot of young kids, and if you teach them how to use AI, to me, I find them to be much more useful now in the business because they are running AI programs and getting AI to do things that I used to be, asking technology to do type of thing. So, but it's a journey to kind of get every industry and every company and every office to kind of figure out what it looks like to incorporate the new technology and still, make sure that the people are, have something to do or are adequately taken care of. Yeah.
I think it's just a shift of roles, right? So whereas a person that was doing a data entry type job, or even now they have virtual assistants that are doing a lot of the intake for calls, like those jobs just don't really exist anymore. So now, and I think a lot of people talk about college as kind of a waste of time anymore. Like I hear that a lot. And I'm like, I think it's just a shift in what you're going for as somebody in college. Like, are you going to go get a business admin degree? Is that really going to do anything for you? Probably not. Will it do something for your career down the road? Like if you get a master's in business, probably.
Right.
But if you're going for an engineering degree or something that has like a functional position, I think is crucial in this industry right now. I think we're going to see so many more engineering or math-driven jobs come out now just because of what AI is doing to kind of that lower entry-level job set right now.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's a lot of vocational careers too that are really in high demand. They talk about things like linemen and working, at power plant facilities and some of those types of things. I don't know what they would technically be called, but there's a lot of things that make the world go round that are really needed to support the technology and the internet infrastructure that we kind of all depend on. So,
you know what those people need?
What?
They need a marketing agency.
Maybe they do. Thank you for the plug there. Okay, so anyways, we've waxed poetic here for a moment about the AI thing. So back to lending. You did residential lending for a while, and recently you've kind of branched out on your own. You have a little bit of a different business structure, right?
Yep. So for most of my career, I've worked in what's called retail lending. So other than you going to like your direct bank, whether it's the Marines or the U.S. banks, the Chases of the world, there's a whole other sector called retail, which would be your cross countries, your loan depots. Trying to think of some of the other bigger guys, the Fairways of the world. they're the type of guys that you go to when typically maybe you don't qualify at the bank, or maybe you want a better rate or a more sharpened pencil rate, or somebody that can actually lead you through the process. That's usually what retail lending is. And it's still specifically residential lending, but you're just getting a better or bigger suite of products. Just put it that way, where a bank might say, hey, we just do conventional lending, we don't do FHA, we don't do VA, and that might be the only thing that they do. So I did that for a long time, ran a branch for cross country here in town, and we were just noticing that the margin with where certain shops were on rates compared to where we were at in the retail sector was far higher. And that was really here in the last 12 to probably 18 months, where rates were steadily going down over the last probably 8 or 9 months, and ours weren't. So I was like, it's probably time to transition here and get in a better rate environment. That way we can offer better products and have an even bigger suite of products to our clientele. And we moved over to the broker channel. And at that point, we moved over to a company called Mpire Financial, which is still a local lender. They're based in, which cross country isn't, but Mpire Financial is based out of Orlando.
Nice.
We have our own brand under them called Harbor Point Mortgage. We don't technically have a branch office here in town yet. We have we'll call it a desk rental here on 14th Avenue.
It counts.
It counts.
It counts in a smaller town, right?
Which my residential partner Shane Meeks kind of runs that office space over there off of 14th. We're in the, forget what the building is. I think it's the Wheeler Insurance Building. Is what we're in. It's where your old office was, right?
Yeah.
So we have an office.
Rob McCullum bought that building.
Yep.
And so for those who don't know, it used to just kind of be like a large general office, and now he's kind of segmented it so you can rent kind of a cubicle office maybe, or... Yeah,
I want to say they're probably about 125 square feet, something
Okay.
like that. I mean, it's a good size. I mean, he fit our large desk in there, so it's a good size space for him. But
Yeah.
Shane's there every day, so if you ever want to pop in and come see him, he's in there almost every day.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, right on 14th Avenue. You can go ask some questions, learn a little bit more about how you guys work and everything.
Yep, he'll talk your ear off for sure.
Shane is a good guy.
Yeah.
He was a good sport in the Meet Me on Main video
Yeah,
that we
he
all
was.
did together.
He painted the fire hydrant really well, a lot better than I did.
He did a great job. Great job, Shane. All right, cool. So you guys are doing that now, and then you also have a little bit of a bigger role in the company.
Yep. So I've always kind of been doing commercial lending or commercial brokering on the side, and what that really means is kind of finding debt financing for businesses. So I've always been kind of a B2B person. That's just where, especially coming from what I did on the liquor wine side, I was always B2B, whether I was dealing with restaurants, package stores, or even big box retail. Dealing with business owners, it's a numbers thing, right? You can talk to a situation and look on something on paper like, hey, this jives or it doesn't jive. Whereas the residential side, it gets a little bit of emotional, right? Whether,
Of course.
you got somebody like, I really need that 3-car garage. Like, well, you're probably not going to find that for $250,000.
Yeah.
So it's more of, and that's just how my brain works, where I'm very like, let me put the pieces together and structure it right correctly for you.
Yeah, the nuts and the bolts.
Which I think that's how most business owners think, where it's like, I want this. How do I structure this to make it work correctly? How do the pieces fit? And that's really what I do. 95% of my day now is really structuring and putting those pieces together. So we do a lot of SBA lending. So anybody that's a business that's maybe doesn't have their own structure, they don't own their own space, we help them purchase their own spaces, or somebody needs working capital, say, hey, we're expanding, but we're just going to get another rental space, or we need to hire more people because we're getting more clientele. We do a lot of that.
So like cash flow loan.
Cash flow loans. We even do startups too. Like if you got somebody who is, especially people that are buying a franchise, we really like those type of people. But if you're even trying to open up your own, like say you want to open up your own barbecue joint here in town, like we do those too.
Okay. Nice.
We do those. We do owner occupied, business purchase like we were just talking about, but we also do larger income producing or investor purchases, whether it's, excuse me, if you're if you're buying a 1 to 4 unit, that we classify that still as residential. Once you get over 4 units, it becomes a commercial sector, and really 5 to like 10 units is this kind of quasi-residential commercial space, and there's not a whole lot of lenders that play in that space, and there's not a lot of banks that play in that space unless you get up into like the $3 and $5 million range. So we help investors that are kind of trying to break out of like, hey, I got a couple duplexes, I might have a fourplex, and I have a really strong portfolio, but they're not at a cash flow level that I really want. So I want to break into a higher unit count and maybe hire a property management company that I've never dealt with before. So we help them structure those projects and find them lending for that. It's a space called Small Balance.
Okay.
And we do really, really well in that place because there's really only probably 5 to 10 lenders nationwide that will really help at a rate point where I think most people want to come in. So a lot of times you get into 5 to 10 units and the rates, you go to one of the bigger guys on the street, they're like, oh, it's 10%, 10.25% for the rate. And like, you can't cash flow on something like that. So there's smaller niche companies and smaller niche lenders that some are banks, some are not, that will help these investors kind of bridge that gap where like, if you're really trying to build a strong portfolio and you want to quit your day job and that's really what you want to do, we can help you do that. And then obviously we do the bigger stuff too. So if you got somebody that, is a really seasoned investor and wants to buy a 100-unit building, we have really strong programs for that with really strong rates that just aren't marketed right now. Or if you have folks that want to do development, that's probably my strongest suit. That's where I do most of my business right now, whether you want to build one of those 100-unit buildings or you want to build student housing is really hot. I do a lot of that right now, not just here in Florida, but nationally. Industrial is very hot. We do a lot of that. But anything that's development-wise, we're really good about piecing the puzzles because you typically can't just go to your local bank and say, hey, I want to take out a loan for $15 million and go build this residential development or build this industrial park or build this retail center. They're going to be like, that's probably not for us.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So kind of maybe a lot of different opportunities, doors that you guys could maybe help somebody open that maybe they think are not immediately available to them right now.
Doors specifically, but it's even more just the structuring because a lot of people will come and like, I really want, like, let's say you got a builder that they're just spot lot. Like they just want to go and build. Guy comes to them, hey, here's, $500,000, build me a house. But now they want to expand and they want to build a development. A lot of the times they don't have the initial investment to start those projects.
Right.
Like a lot of people don't understand that when you're buying land, it doesn't just mean like, hey, okay, we bought the land, now we're just going to start building homes on it. Like there's a whole in-between process of that.
Yeah.
And, there's a word that gets thrown out and most people don't understand what it is entitlements. A lot of the times you buy this land and it has to be entitled, which just means like it needs to be properly zoned to do the amount of units they want to do, or they have to do the geotech and the civil engineering to make sure that everything's planned and architecturally sound before they can move forward with the horizontal build, which would be the infrastructure piece, and then on to the vertical build, which is the actually building of the homes.
Interesting.
And you can't just go to your local bank and say, hey, I want to go buy this piece of land that's unentitled for $5 million, and I want to leverage it at 80%. I'm only going to put 20% down.
Yeah.
So that's where we come in and we structure these and tell them, hey, like this is what you're looking at. This is what you're going to have to bring. This is the development team that you're going to need to have to even do this, and kind of go from there. So it's more almost of a structured thing than it is about opening doors to lenders.
Helping them put the pieces together and things like that. Yeah. No, that's really cool. Yeah. Interesting.
We make dreams come true.
See, that sounds like a Disney slogan.
I had to bring it back in.
I love it. No, I think that's really great. I think it's fascinating, and always an encouragement to people that you can be in one industry, but there's a lot of skills that are transferable to other industries, and you may have to, ask a few times or kind of work your way in, but you can make those bigger career shifts if you want to. at any season of life, I think. So
Skills add up, and I think that's one thing that I've learned over my career now is that you might not realize something that you did 10, 15 years ago is actually relatable now to something that you're doing.
yeah.
Like I said, when I was with that title company, I never thought that, I'd be, doing home loans or doing, commercial lending loans at that time. And knowing how the small inner workings kind of a title company works now is very integral to getting some of these things done.
That's
and
great.
what they can do and what they can't do.
Yeah. You can understand a little bit more behind the scenes because of that. Yeah.
I'd say anybody that's in the real estate game, if you don't understand how the whole process works, even if you're working just on the residential side between the agent side, the title side, the lending side, if you don't know how, at least a ground level or I guess a high level view of how it all kind of puts together, you're never going to be successful in that business. Unless you just really have a really great team that you work with.
Right.
Which is always the wish, but not always the reality.
Well, like in anything, the more you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Before we go today, I do want to touch on you not only serve on the Main Street board, which you and I got to know each other a little bit better through that, but you're also on another committee or commission, and it's not maybe your first round with kind of civic committees or municipal committees, whatever we call them. Do you want to share a little bit what else you're doing in your off hours?
Yeah, my life
all
loves
your
all
extra
these other
free
things.
time, right?
So when I had moved, like right after COVID, I want to say it was 2022 or something like that, maybe even 23. I really, because I didn't know if I was going to stay in Vero or not. I came from kind of a metropolitan area that came to Vero. I'm like, I just don't know if this is going to be a big enough city to really grow a business. And around that time, 22, 23, I was like, I'm going to plant roots. So I started kind of touching base with some of the business owners that I actually had sold, liquor and wine to, back in the day when I first got here. And I spoke with Linda Moore. And Linda was like, hey,
city council member, by the way.
Yes, city council member.
Former vice mayor of the Vero Beach City Council, yes.
So she had talked to me about that they're trying to fill a seat on the zoning board, zoning planning board. And they also need an alternate role. And she's like, with you doing mortgage now, would you be, interested on, possibly being an alternate or, rotating it into a board spot? And I was like, yeah, I'd love that. I would love to, serve and be, as helpful as I can. I mean, at the time I was like, I have no clue how these things work.
Am I helpful? Not sure, but if you need me, I'm there. Yeah.
Well, and she's like, you bring a younger perspective. And I think that was kind of the whole point was like, that board was, and I'm not pointing any fingers or anything like that, but it was definitely an older board, and a lot of the folks on there just had been on that board for a while, and so it was more about bringing more of a fresh look at it and somebody that
a new view is always helpful on those types of things. Yeah,
you put it better than I did. So I went and did that for a little while. I worked as an alternate on the board. Got to see when Three Corners got brought through the zoning board, which was pretty neat, and was approved to basically be zoned for general commercial and the other zoning privileges that it got. But we during that process, we moved, and I moved out of the city.
Okay.
So the clerk for the city was like, you can't stay on the board anymore because you don't live in the city limits.
Whoopsies.
So I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. So I was like, well, is there another board that I can serve on that I can help? And she's like, yeah. She's like, there's a couple if you live in the county. And one of those was the Marina Commission board, which, I've always, lived by the water in my adult life, but really didn't have a full perspective of what that was. And over the last, I want to say year and a half, I've been on that board now and, trying to help as far as getting more, police on the water, getting the derelict boats off the water here as well. But I've moved into a full board seat on the commission board here. And now through that process, moving on to another committee that helps with the physical boat parade for Christmas.
Nice.
Which hopefully down the road, which you and I were trying to get this done here, doing a 4th of July boat parade.
Right, that would be awesome.
We'll see next year.
One
it might be a
days,
thing.
Maybe, yeah.
But it's it's something that I didn't think as a child or a younger youth that I would want to do any type of civic duties, but my grandmother, who lives here in Vero, comes from that environment. She was the state school board president for Ohio. She worked for a couple of the governors as well, ran the Chamber of Commerce in the very small town that I was born in. And
that's cool.
Out of all of her grandchildren, I'm the only one that's kind of moved into kind of like helping civically, I guess.
Carrying on the legacy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then you were kind enough to also step in and join the board for Main Street.
Yep.
So do you want to just share maybe why you felt like that was something worthwhile to you and, you know, what you guys are kind of hoping to do in the future?
So Main Street actually gave me my first marketing opportunity here in Vero. When I was working for a company called Mpire Financial, which was the second lending company that I worked for here in town, we got to put up a booth. You know, and it was a very low cost entrance into marketing. We didn't have to go
like
spend
a Downtown Friday?
At a Downtown Friday, yeah.
Nice.
And we did that for, I want to say a year, that was 2021 or 2022. And Sue Gramas, you know, I got to know her a little and kind of see, you know, what they were doing, what they were trying to do. And, you know, I really enjoy the, you know, what we're trying to do. I mean, I think Beachside usually gets a lot of the attention, obviously, because that's where all the tax dollars come from.
It's where the ocean is.
Yep.
So, yeah.
But downtown, I think you're seeing a lot of transformation. I think a lot of that is in part due to you, too. I mean, I think you as president put a lot into that. And
a team effort, always.
Yes, team effort. But, I mean, it takes a few integral pieces to really make a vision move. And I think you're seeing that now. And I think there's going to see some big things coming here that I can't talk about at this point in time, but I think there's going to be some neat things that people are going to see, and they're going to be like, wow, downtown has really changed, and it is a epicenter to be at.
Yeah. Which,
I mean, I think it is now, but I think it's just going to be exponentially better here soon.
That is exciting. Yeah. I think it's great, though. I've always said that it's good to have different pockets in a community, right? Where a business owner who may not be ready for the rent or the clientele that's on Oceanside, right? They can start somewhere else in the historic district, right? And kind of get their feet underneath them and stuff like that. And some businesses end up moving later to, you know, higher price bracket type of thing. But I think there's a little something for everybody downtown. And it's cool to see the families that live in like McCanish Park and some of those places be able to walk down or, you know, come down on golf carts and things like that and participate in everything that's happening down there. So
I think you're going to see more of that too. As downtown grows, I think you're going to see more of that golf cart environment. I mean, I don't know how that's going to work with parking here soon, but you know, it's...
We can talk offline. I had a vision when I was on the board. I talked with TP and Rob a little bit about there's some places where I think you could work that in and make it a little bit more accessible like that. So no, I think that's really great. It takes a lot of work to kind of balance those volunteer hours, because all that stuff is volunteer, of course, in addition to a business, in addition to a family. And your lovely wife, right? I see all your lovely photos on Facebook. How many kiddos do you guys have?
We have 4 in total.
So you just have a couple things to do.
Just a couple
in
things.
Life, yeah.
Well, and she's a busy gal too. I mean, I think I kind of rubbed off on a way, you know, joining Main Street and doing some of these other civic things that now she's taken over a VP role for the what do they call that at the schools? The PTA board for Beachland.
Nice.
So now she'll probably be busier than I am, because I don't know how she's going to do that with how much stuff they do over at Beachland. It is a great school, and they have a great PTA over there. But it's a lot of meetings.
Yeah. Well, as you said, it takes, you know, individuals with a lot of passion and drive to kind of make everything else work. People sometimes don't always realize how much is going on behind the scenes to make a community successful overall, right? But we appreciate everything that you're doing and the family. And I think it's very cool that you and Shane are kind of embarking on a little bit of a different course with the lending business. So tell people the best way to reach you if they want to talk about lending or anything else that's going on.
So the best way to contact us right now, our website will be probably fully operational here in the next couple weeks, but the best way to reach us is really through Facebook right now. If you go to Jacob McCrae at Harbor Point Mortgage, if you direct message me, that's the best way at this point. And then we'll push out the website here soon.
Well, maybe by the time this launches, it'll be in the describe.
It could be. It's possible.
Number, email, other ways?
So email is jmccrae@mpirefi.com.
What on earth is that?
Mpire Financial.
Of course. Silly me. We'll put all of these links in the description, you guys. So, but, I enjoy speaking with you. I think you bring kind of a broad perspective when it comes to kind of what economic development looks like here in our community, and then also just residential lending transactions and things like that. So thank you for spending some time with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. Go learn more about Jake. Go find Dana and enjoy a great glass of wine. And we'll see you next time on Coffee, Cocktails, and Capitalism. Cheers.